sees me drop a rat, he'll be out in a heartbeat. Off, they will put material on. They will often urinate on the nest to provide additional moisture. That's their way of getting it on there. Also, there are substances in crocodilians' cloaca, or vent area, that seem to prevent certain insects from getting at the eggs. That may be helpful. Over next to Ma, we have another male cataphractus who is named Cat Stevens. And we'll see if we can get Cat Stevens to come up here and say hello. Come on, buddy. Here. He's pretty shy. He's very healthy, about 8-foot male. Come on, Cat. Good boy. If you take a look at those teeth, that's a healthy crocodile. Not yellow or brown, but nice, bright, sparkly white. Means they're being replaced very frequently. That shows good nutrition, healthy animal. This is Esmeralda. She's about 11 feet long, and she is a Themistoma, one of the narrow-snouted species. They are highly endangered. We don't really know what's left for a population in the wild, other than the fact that it has been dramatically reduced. The Themistoma bears a superficial resemblance to an animal called the gharial, another narrow-snouted animal found in India, in the Ganges river systems, and also up in Nepal. The Themistoma, however, is a very different animal from the gharial. The gharial is primarily a fish eater, whereas the Themistoma is primarily a water bird feeder. And this is where, in previous conversations, I have mentioned the difficulties and dangers of extrapolating based on form. Form and function are not necessarily as closely related as people think they are, or they may have other aspects of relation. If you look at the nuchal muscles up here on Ezzy, they're pretty substantial. She's able to jackknife sideways very quickly, but the other thing she's able to do, if you were able to see the structures, is she's able to bring her head up as she jackknifes or goes from side to side, lateral movement. And this is very important to understand their feeding technique. They feed primarily on water birds and things that might fall out of a tree near the billabongs and shallow peat forests where they live, or peat swamps where they live. They are able to swoop upward and catch their prey on the surface. They can move lightning fast. It's absolutely a quarter of an eye blink in terms of how quickly they can move. And once again, I am maybe 18 inches from Esmeralda. She is staying exactly where she is supposed to. You notice there is no aggressiveness. Aggressive is a bad term, especially when it comes to crocodilians, because most of their behavior simply isn't aggression, it's fear. And if it's not fear, sometimes it has to do with territoriality. We can cause as much of that as we want to by not understanding what we're dealing with, by not understanding these animals. Now, Ezzy has been with me for many, many years. I'm going to walk over to the side here and let you get a good look at her face and her head. Long, narrow snout with very sharp teeth, relatively long teeth. And although people thought that would be great for catching fish, it turns out it's just as good, if not better, for catching birds. And getting the bird by using long, slender teeth to get through those feathers and hang on, that's the way they go. Any time that people have gotten Themistomas and tried to feed them on fish for any length of time, they usually ended up dying. Once again, making an improper inference by body shape and form, and in this case, that long, slender snout. Called dingbat. A very sweet-tempered little girl. But we want to get a picture of Dingbat's face over here to show the twisting that's going on with the jaws. This happens both in captivity and in the wild, although it's far more common, I should say, in captivity. No one knows for certain the reason that it happens. In the wild, what I saw in Malaysia many, many, many years ago, back in the 1960s, is that they would often lay on the edges of these shallow pools or billabongs with their heads right on the bank and kind of a rounded, sloped area. And quite literally, over a period of time, the snouts would simply bend from these animals laying there. Many of the wild animals that we saw had snouts that were curved or bent upright. Her snout is twisted in addition to being pushed off to the side laterally. This could be a nutritional problem early on in life. We're just not sure. We do see it in the slender-snouted species more often than in the wide-snouted species. Maybe we can get a better look at her from the front over here and try and... Okay, we're going to look at her from a little different perspective so that you can see how profound that twisting is. It hasn't gotten any worse since we've had her. She came from a zoo down south. She almost died. The veterinarian at that zoo thought she was going to take some blood and decided to go into the cranial sinus, which is behind the head. Unfortunately, this woman did not have the experience to understand that in tomistomas, the cranial sinus is uneven. And on one side, it's quite small. She ended up sticking it into the spine by mistake. And this poor thing was leaking cerebral spinal fluid for almost a month. In a mammal, you do what's called a blood patch in that situation, where you would take blood from a vein in the body and inject it into the area where the cerebral spinal fluid was coming out or leaking. Unfortunately, in crocodilians, because of the type of skin and musculature that they have, you just can't find the actual initial injection site. It would be almost impossible to do. Perhaps with refined MRI technique, you might be able to get away with it. But about all we could do at that point was wait and hope that she would come around and give her the necessary TLC. And we did that, and after a month she came up. By the way, it caused a tremendous headache and terrible nausea to have that spinal fluid leaking. If anyone out there has ever had a so-called spinal tap and had it not heal properly or start leaking, you know what I'm talking about. So this poor gal spent a month with a very, very severe condition, and it eventually did mitigate, but we were worried. We thought we were going to lose her a couple of times. Female Siamese crocodile. She is about 6.5 feet in length, maybe close to 7. And she was bred this year with a male. No eggs yet, although it looks like she probably has eggs in her. She may be just nesting late this year. Her mate is a male who we were told is infertile from the institution that we got the male from, but it looks like that male, after several years of corrective nutrition, is probably going to be a fertile animal again. We'll come and visit him in just a moment. But this young lady is very, very belled out around her middle. And that's often a sign that we've got eggs. You look right here where I'm pointing out, all along there, you look for that sort of bell shape. And that's often indicative, especially when they're looking about like that, that they have eggs and they're getting ready to lay. She will put a nest in, usually in one of the corners. Crocs often nest where they will find a small tree or even a post if they can find it. And they use that as sort of structure for the nest to be built around. Some of the smallest crocs, by the way, build some of the largest nests. The broad-nosed caimans will build nests sometimes that tall and perhaps 3.5 or 4 feet at the base, when in fact they are only about 25 or 30 pounds in weight and very tiny animals. So these guys, the Siamese crocs, build a reasonably robust nest. I would say they're sort of the mid-range. We'll see in the next week or two whether or not she provides us with some eggs and perhaps some little guys for this year. Okay, this is a pair of West African Nile crocodiles. In recent years, it's been determined that they are probably a separate and discrete species. They don't get anywhere near as large as your standard Nile crocodile. There are differences in scalation and scutation. We have had her nest now, I think, 2 years, but this year, did we get any fertile eggs out of her this year? No, guess we didn't. Next year might be the charm on these guys. It took a while to get the male, I think, up to the point where he was ready to do the necessary breeding. The female, actually when I got her, had no teeth also, and she now has quite a good complement. And the male has got a pretty good set coming in finally as well. Come on, girl. Pick your head up, Marianne. This is Marianne. See if we can get her to open up and show us her teeth. There we go. Atta girl. She's doing quite well. Okay, we're going to visit here with another friend of mine. This is Sea Dog, named after Captain Crunch's favorite pet. He is a saltwater crocodile from Indonesia originally, and he is about 15 feet long. He's right at 15 feet in length. He's a big croc. He is, as with most saltwater crocs, very food-oriented, but he also has good manners. You see him slowly turning rather than rushing out to grab the food. He knows what he wants. He knows what he's going to get, and it's food day, so let's just give him a rat there. Here, give him another one. There we go. It was a good catch, Sea Dog. Good boy. All right. In you go. No visiting the cameraman today. In. I'll give you the other rat. No. Here, it's down here. Poof, poof, and goof. Here, I'll put it down on the side. No jumping allowed. Bad behavior. Yeah, bad behavior. We don't want any of that jumping stuff. Crocodiles of various forms have the ability to jump sometimes. The saltwaters are particularly athletic, and teaching them to jump is always a bad thing. It means that it's a management problem. So what we don't want is to have 15 feet of crocodile that likes to jump. Human beings, unlike crocodiles, are very soft in our body parts, and even a nudge from a crocodilian can be potentially very catastrophic to us, especially from a crocodilian that's that large. So what we do is make sure that those things don't happen, they don't occur, that we put safety first. Again, he's a big boy. He's not being aggressive. He's just looking for his meal. And you still have one over by your right paw there, young man. We're standing over here by one of the tortoise pens. We have in here black mountain tortoises and Burmese brown tortoises. These are animals that we have bred, and animals that I've always very much enjoyed. They're quite fascinating creatures with much more complex social lives than we ever anticipated, and one of the things that allows us to determine that is being able to literally sit on the porch and watch these guys for hours on end. One of the problems with public collections is that these animals are exposed to thousands of people every day. It can't help but alter their behavior in a number of ways. When these guys are exposed to only 2 or 3 or 4 people, as all of ours are, we see far more natural behaviors. We also have the opportunity to watch interactions among the tortoises that you might not ever see in public facilities. As you can tell, they're scared to death of me. They would actually come out and follow me around if they had the chance to do it. They're little guys with a hell of a sense of humor. We'll walk over to visit some of our other tortoises over here. In this pen we have red and yellowfoot tortoises from South America. They are breeding and constitute a breeding group. Interestingly, the red and yellowfoot tortoises are not crossing with each other. We don't want to produce any hybrids. And the little fellow sticking his nose up over there is a young Galapagos tortoise of one of the rarer subspecies, Beckai. And we are raising a number of these animals as part of our contribution to the Galap tortoise program. One of many, many, many conservation programs that we are involved in and have been involved in for many years. You can see the gang coming out of the house over here with the red and yellow foots. It's like the tortoise street gang over there. Truly one of my favorite tortoises. The redfoot and yellowfoot, by the way, are not the same animal, just different colors. They're 2 different species. They're denticulata and carbonaria.